Mics are on, gentlemen and ladies.
Whatever works.
Let's get her done. I only have 3 pages of questions. And
Good evening, members of council. I see that we have quorum. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, members of staff. And I call this regular meeting of Committee of the Whole to order. It has been moved by Councillor Ribiak, seconded by Councillor Durley, that the agenda for the October 7th, 2013 regular meeting of Committee of the Whole be adopted. Any changes to the agenda? There being none, I call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. The next item is disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. Do any members have any pecuniary interest they need to declare? Councillor Clark.
Yes, 5.14, I believe, the development charges, and again, because I work in the industry, and I think I still have to touch base on the last meeting for the same reason.
Okay, thank you very much. Any others? Can that be so noted?
Thank you.
Thank you. The next item is department reports. We start with corporate services. It has been moved by Councillor King, seconded by Councillor Durley, that Committee of the Whole recommend to Council that the 2013 second quarter revenue and expenditure report be received for information. I believe it's third quarter.
You missed one.
Third quarter, yeah. Sorry, thank you. All right, let's redo that. It's been moved by Councillor Ribiak, seconded by Councillor Papp. The Committee of the Whole recommend to Council that the 2013 capital project update report be received for information. Thank you for catching that, Councillor Kersey. Questions, comments about the capital project update? I know some of the items are covered in other reports as we go through the evening, and there may be questions about those. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. The next item has been moved by Councillor King, seconded by Councillor Durley, that the Committee of the Whole recommend to Council that the 2013 third quarter revenue and expenditure report be received for information. Any discussion on that matter? There being none, I call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Looks like we'll be on track on the operating side as well. That's good to see. The next item has been moved by, thank you, by Councillor King, seconded by Councillor Kersey. The Committee of the Whole recommend to Council that the Town of Pelham Capital Asset Management Plan be approved, and that the Facilities Condition Index Assessment be approved, and that the cost of $15,000 plus travel costs be funded from the Facilities Reserve. Discussion, Councillor Kersey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to, I guess it would be the treasurer. The Facility Condition Index assessment. Is this an individual who comes down and does the assessment, or is it a tool which would have ongoing value to our staff that they could utilize to provide ongoing assessment to the various facilities that we have in the community?
I think actually I'm going to defer this over to Mr. Mannel. I understood that it was a consulting company that comes down and does the assessment, and they'll give us a window of 15 years, but I'll let him elaborate.
That is correct. It's a consultant who comes in, he'll provide the report, and then that report will be used as a basis for the ongoing maintenance and upgrading of facilities.
Councillor?
Within industry and within people, you know, the works that people do that manage property for a profession, there are tools available that can be bought, like programs that can be bought, that can be utilized to develop a maintenance program, can be used to assess buildings, and that professionals in various areas could be called in when it's acknowledged that they are needed at certain junctures. I just wondered if we've cost compared that to the approach that we're taking here.
Who wants to take that? You want to take that, Madam Treasurer?
The purpose of this Facilities Condition Index is exactly for that reason. We do have the software in-house to do the maintenance programs once we define what they are. The problem is there's never been an assessment of the buildings to date. So this is what the facilities coordinator, who's coming from a previous position in the same field, this is what they used in that field as well with all the universities. So we're adopting this so that we can bring it forward into our software application and know when all the work maintenance programs are supposed to be done.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
So the bottom line is this will establish a baseline for each facility, and then it will be incorporated into the program that we have in-house to be utilized by staff going forward.
Ms. Pupel?
That's exactly correct.
That's great, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Rubyak?
Thank you. I think the question was answered. This is a one-time event, establishes the baseline, and then we manage an understanding of the condition of the buildings thereafter. Okay, thank you.
That's correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. Others? We have done structural assessments, other assessments on some of the facilities that we have in the town, the arena. I know we did it for the flagpole, et cetera. We're doing work on some other facilities. So how is it that we can't just plug those studies into the system that we have?
Those studies are useful. They're a different component of the building. These ones are for roof, for instance, boilers, furnaces, air conditioning units, everything that the building is in the building as well. So it's just another tool.
So it's different than a structural analysis that we might see
Absolutely
at the
different.
arena.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Any others? There being none, I call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. Counselor, that's the development charge
Oh,
report.
thanks for waking me up.
I'm sure none of us here take offense to your comment. The next item has been moved by Councillor Durley, seconded by Councillor Ribbiak. The Committee of the Whole recommend to Council that the issues summary report 2014 draft development charge rates be received, and that the presentation prepared by C.N. Watson Consultants on the 2014 Town of Pelham development charge attached thereto be received for information, and that staff proceed with a public open house scheduled for November 12th, 2013 at 6:30 in the council chambers, and that staff bring back a report on the results of the open house to council at the November 18th, 2013 regular meeting of council.
Pretty different than what's here.
Councillor Kersey, you're saying the motion is
Well, that's
different
considerably different than what we have here.
to the motion, Ms. Pupel? The motion's different than what was on the agenda. The motion on the agenda was that we receive it and comment.
Right.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor.
Agenda.
Yes, that was the original motion, and then it was added to after to proceed with the open house and bring back a report to council so that we can move forward with something.
Okay, thank you. Comments, questions? Councillor Kersey, Councillor Papp?
Well, thank you. I'll just go ahead with the comments that I had pertaining to the other motion, because it just falls into the same line of thought anyway. Well, I appreciate all the work that's gone into this study. I had a couple of questions. When I look at the bar graph that shows our position on DC charges with respect to residential as well as commercial, I find it really hard to do a good, valid comparison, other than to say, you know, we're here and we're there. But in terms of the actual dollars and cents differential, I find it a little bit difficult to do that. So I wondered whether we could approach the consultant to find out if I'm sure he does have the hard numbers, which would truly reflect the differential between our spot is third on the bar chart and the people that are on sixth on the bar chart.
You're asking for the actual number?
Yeah, and the reason I'm asking for that is, my follow-up is that there's been some expression of interest around the table that our DC charges not only fairly represent the future growth of our community and help to support those things that we need, but also that we would send a message to the building industry that we're open for business and want to encourage business to come in here. So my thought was that once we have these hard numbers, we could look at it, averaging it, take the 12 municipalities across Niagara and look at, you know, where do we fall in line of the median, you know, and maybe we look at adjusting our DCs towards the average so that we're not the highest in the peninsula, but we're not the lowest. We're sort of reflective of what is the norm in our region. And then the follow-up of that is, of course, we need to know what the hard numbers, the impact of that averaging would be. So my request to staff would be that we get those numbers, that we calculate the average of the region, and then get a report back that would tell us if we were to average our DCs, what would be the loss of revenue over the 5-year term of the bylaw? Because we're really talking about a 5-year window here, so that would give us some hard numbers to crunch around in our brain to decide whether we would want to make such a move to both support our future development, but also to send a message to the development community that we're open for business and are doing our utmost to try and encourage them to come in here and find Pelham a good place to do business.
Okay.
So I just put that out there for thought.
Madam Treasurer, can those numbers be received and that work be done? The council is looking for sort of an average of the local municipalities.
Yes,
the
through you,
rates?
Mr. Mayor. It was discussed at the presentation, I believe, or it was discussed with staff, that the local area municipalities are about 20,000 with their DC. So that's where the line was that they were comparing us to, saying that we are still under that line. But we can definitely get all of the area municipalities and see where we rank amongst them. And then I just need more clarification on the averaging, on exactly what you're looking for with that averaging.
I think Councillor, I don't know if you want to do the averaging or whether you want staff to do it, but I think
Yeah,
you're sort of looking for the ballpark, you're looking for the numbers so that
Right.
you know where we fit in.
Right.
And
Because
your
when I
ultimate
look at
goal
the-
is to find out where we are.
When I look
on
at these
average.
bar graphs and I look at where we fall and where we would fall when and if we make the DC changes that have been recommended within the report, I'm assuming that for the most part, the regional DCs are consistent from one municipality to the other. That may not even be the case. So they are. I assume that they would be. So if we take that out and make that assumption, then it would be interesting to look at where we fall relative to the 12 municipalities, what the average is across the region of Niagara. And then make the assumption that we're going to go to the average and calculate out what that differential would be over the 5-year term of the bylaw.
Okay, so you're looking for that information. Now, you want it presented at, additional information at this session, at the open house, or as
Well, no, I
part
would
of our
think that-
deliberations?
I would think we should probably try and have some of that information prior to going to the open house. I mean,
So but you would want it, I mean, if it's there at the open house, then that would be, we're not, I guess.
Council hasn't had an opportunity then, Mr. Mayor, to discuss it and decide which route we would like to support. I mean, we received the report of our consultant, and I understood that today would be an opportunity to have some discussion around the recommendations that the consultant brought forward.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the motion that's before, initially, the motion may have been that. But I think the report probably always said to have a public meeting, which is part of the process. So, Madam Treasurer, essentially, we're saying, what are you saying with the motion? I don't want to put words in your mouth.
There's a requirement to have a public open house, so what was thought of is that the public open house would happen, the report would come back to council with the discussions from the public open house, and that, at that time, council would have discussion over the DC and with this information as well, with the averaging of across the municipalities, and you can make the decision
Well,
at that
as
point.
long as it goes out and is made clear to the public that council has not endorsed this yet, that this is a report from a consultant.
It's a draft.
Firm, it's a draft, it's not been discussed at council, and it's not been endorsed by council. Because ultimately, it should be our decision on what we put out there.
So, part of this motion does say the 2014 draft development charge rates.
Okay,
Be
but I want to make clear, Mr. Mayor,
Okay.
then, that this has not been endorsed by this council yet.
Okay, I
And
agree.
then that's fine, I would wait for that information to be brought
Okay.
forward.
Okay, can that be made clear as this open house goes forward? I think all councils agrees with that. Councillor Papp, you had something?
Yeah, not to create any more complex, I guess, I'm picking up on where Councillor Kersey's getting at, is to, I guess, get an analysis done, and I'm just curious about where we stand right now, Mr. CEO, Madam Treasurer, of similar municipalities of same size. And I'm thinking more along the lines of aside from Niagara Falls, St. Catharines, and Welland, the areas of growth right now in our area are Thorold for sure, right? They've got, I don't know how many lots.
They have
Us-
potential.
Us, yeah, potential. Us for sure. Grimsby's out of lots, if I'm not mistaken. It'd be interesting to see where we size up, and what I guess following your line of thought is to prepare us, and I don't know whether this is worthwhile before we go to the public meeting, in case we are questioned, like, you guys are high, you're not high, that we have them say, no, we're not really that high, we're actually in the middle. I mean, ultimately, it'll be our decision where we want to be, but I don't know if that's a worthwhile tact. I'm just trying to think of game strategy, so that, already we're hearing some rumblings, people say, oh, you guys are 12,000 above, da-da-da-da-da. The bottom line is that we haven't endorsed anything, but it'd be interesting to compare of similar sized communities, and those are the only ones that come to mind. Niagara on the Lake, I don't know where the growth areas, and Mr. Mayor, you probably know, and those are the ones that come immediately to mind. Port Colborne, Fort Erie, those are same, I don't mean to put them, we're all the same size, 17 to 24,000.
Right.
I'm trying to get a
Fort Erie's
sense.
a bit bigger,
Bit
30,000.
bigger, be interesting to see where do we how we land on DC chart.
That'd be another study to look at.
Just to find out how we end up. Somebody doesn't come along and say, well, if you want to build in Fort Erie, go and build in Fort Erie, right?
Okay.
Just for, through
Madam
you,
Treasurer?
Mr. Mayor, if you, just for information, on the graph, the blue section is the lower tier. So
Right.
where we see the lines coming
Right.
straight across, areas like Grimsby, Niagara Falls, Welland, Fort Erie, and Niagara on the Lake are all in line with our new calculated rate
Right.
for DC.
Yeah.
So that's where we'd be almost consistent with what they're charging. Areas like
Prepare the defense.
Yeah,
Hamilton and stuff are outside of the realm of our population.
some
so-
of us are mostly visual, but I think others are looking for the actual number. So I think, as long as you've committed to get the actual number for us so that we can compare whether we're in the ballpark or not and whether it is the average. Mr. CAO wants to comment. Mr. CAO?
Just to respond to the councillor's request, we'll certainly have the consultant have that information ready for the open house, and we'll be able to provide that to the public. I think that's what you're looking for.
So we're ready before.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Papp, anything further?
No, that's perfect.
All right.
That's-
Others? All right, are we ready for the motion? So it does say that it's the draft development charge rates and that staff will proceed with an open house scheduled for November. You know what, I do want to ask about this. It's a public open house. Is this a public meeting? Or is it an open house? So you put the boards up, you take comments, that kind of thing? It's not a public meeting.
No, it's not a problem.
Madam Treasurer, please explain what's being
According
proposed
to
here.
the consultants, this would be a public open house, and you put the boards up and ask questions and go through a
Okay,
process.
so not a public meeting.
Right.
Okay.
That'll come
Okay.
when we get ready to adopt it.
Um,
Then it'll be-
the 18th, regular meeting of council. Okay. And in terms of this coming forward to council, are you proposing that the report will come back, not a bylaw? Is that correct?
The report,
The report? Okay. So we'll look forward to the report, and then
the
if
bylaw would be in December.
there can be changes made, et cetera. Okay, great. So I will call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. We have to find our counselor. There he is. It's been moved by Councillor Durley, seconded by Councillor Ribbiak. The Committee of the Whole receive the September 2013 Corporate Services Report for information. Discussion? I had a question about the town's website. It's under number 8 here. It says that hoping to bring forward the new website in the next couple of months. I thought the hope was to have this in July, and we're now in October. Can we have some clarity on this, please?
The new website is currently, we've been going back and forth with the consultants to make sure that the website performs the way that we want it to perform, and that includes the e-commerce portion of it, so we're working to nail that all down. Probably not next couple of months, but, in the next few weeks, we should see a prototype that's willing to go out in a soft launch. And then hopefully we'll be able to roll the e-commerce out just after the new year. So that's
And
what's
can you
expected.
remind us what e-commerce means?
Online banking, essentially. You can pay your bills through the town site. You can, pay for recreational services, camps, swimming lessons and so forth through the website. So, and it creates a whole tool for the facilities component too, where the software that will then be housed on the website. So there's a lot of work involved in getting that prepared, and it will eliminate one of the other softwares that we have in-house.
Okay, thank you. Look forward to getting that website up and running. I know that we're operating the current website sort of on a piecemeal basis and not making improvements, huge improvements to it, other than updating it. So I look forward to that website coming forward. Councillor Durley?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it'd be important to make the announcement. I think the word is out there, but just to inform the public that Tuesday, October 15th, right here in the chambers at 6:30 is public open house for budget, and the first step in the budget. And in fact, if you can't make it there, any email submissions can be made to ourbudget@pelham.ca. I think it's important for everybody to know that. I know the staff has got this onus on our website and that, but if perhaps an announcement over Cogeco would certainly get it. And if in fact the newspaper media can put that out, we would really appreciate that, because anybody who wants to take part certainly should have the opportunity.
All right, thank you very much, Councillor Durley, for highlighting that, and we look forward to that discussion. That will be a session where people can present to council and ask questions, and we can answer questions. And then I believe it's also a time for council, as was done last round, where council can ask questions and make some recommendations, et cetera, on the budget. So it should be a good evening. We look forward to it. Thank you, Councillor Durley, for highlighting that. I'm going to call the question on the corporate services report. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. The next item, now we're moving to Public Works and Utilities. It has been moved by Councillor Papp, seconded by Councillor Kersey. The Committee of the Whole recommend to Council that the issue summary report, snow clearing options at driveways, be received for information. Discussion? Questions, comments? I don't know, I couldn't figure this out. So it's recommended that we're just essentially, that, we had some feedback from residents complaining about snow going in driveways. Mr. Mantle, essentially what you're saying is that staff will take extra care when clearing snow to ensure that they'll make use and clear that snow and not dump it on people's driveways. Is that essentially what the report's saying?
That is correct. We'll do a little bit more care in the operation.
Okay, and if people have concerns, questions, et cetera, who do they call?
Call the Public Works Department. Be happy to talk to them.
Okay, they call town hall and hit that number. Okay, thank you very much. Any others? There being none, I call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion's carried. We look forward to a more friendly service, I guess, more care with the service. Thank you. The next item has been moved by Councillor Papp, seconded by Councillor Kersey, that the issue sheet summary report proposed stop signs 2013 be received, and that the committee recommended council that the proposed stop sign locations identified in Schedule A, October 2013 stop signs appended hereto be approved. Discussion? It's good to see that we're acting on a complaint from some residents. No discussion on the matter? There being none, I call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. The next item has been moved by Councillor Kersey, seconded by Councillor Papp, that Committee of the Whole receive the September 2013 Public Works and Utilities Report for information. Councillor Ribbiak.
Thank you. I have a question with regard to Fenwick revitalization. And I guess it's the question I ask, I think almost every time this comes up. How are we doing on the schedule? Where are we? What are we able to tell people as to when this is going to be happening? Are we any closer to specific dates?
Mr. CAO, Mr. Mantle, who wants to answer that?
Mr. Mayor, we have a conference call set up for next week. Yes, next week, and the scheduling matrix has been complete. We just need to go through it and finalize it, and then we should be very clear on the scheduling timelines, and then that information can be shared with the community.
Excellent, Mr. Mayor, excellent.
Thank you. And does that include hydro?
It
And
includes
other utilities?
It includes hydro from what we know now. We're working within the information hydro's given us, but that doesn't mean that we can't still accelerate the timelines.
Okay. All right, thank you. Anything further on that particular item?
No, not that.
Okay. Councillor Clark on another item?
Yep, on a question for Mr. Mantle regarding the Hay Street sanitary sewer repair and his schedule there.
And your question, the schedule of when it's going to be done?
How he's
Mr.
making
Mantle?
out with the schedule.
We should be excavating tomorrow with that. I think the equipment is moving on site today, and the schedule is to start work tomorrow.
And do we know the duration?
2 days.
Okay.
That would be
Councillor
very
Clark?
nice to stitch up our nice new road.
Okay, thank you. Others? Councillor Kersey, you have another issue?
Not with respect to the Hay Street.
Okay. Anyone else? Did you have another
yeah.
issue on the report? Go ahead, Councillor.
And if I'm off base, Mr. Mayor, let me know, but I think this is the right place to raise this. I have always said that before we approach budget time, we need to ask for the reports that we want to have and to help us make informed decisions. One of the things that I've been concerned about, and this may fall under planning as also Mr. Mantle's area, but I'm still concerned about the truck traffic that's on Pelham Street coming off of 20. We see these big, huge transport trucks coming into what constitutes really a neighborhood and going past schools and what have you, and creating a great deal of risk. So the question I have, or the request that I had, was that perhaps staff could bring forward a report to inform council what options we have before us to reroute truck traffic off of 20 to perhaps regional roads and keep them out of neighborhoods. And if that would require a truck study, what that study would cost, so that we could incorporate that into our budgetary discussions. So it's just a pre-report so that we have some background information that would tell us what, if there were any budgetary implications of looking at that particular problem.
Okay.
And along the same lines, and it probably falls into the same category, would be the left-hand turn restriction out of Town Square. We've been waiting for to see the overall master plan for our downtown, and from the reports that we received, it appears that that's a little ways off. So again, whether a study is necessary there and whether there's any budgetary implications would be helpful to know before
Okay.
we get to the budget table.
So, Councillor, I'm going to call on the CAO to just comment, because I think some of those items have been contemplated, discussed, but no action's been taken. But I think it was contemplated under the downtown master plan, as we discussed.
Right.
And there is an update in the CAO's report on that, but maybe, Mr. CAO, you can just give us a general update on that, and then we'll pursue it with Mr. Mantle. Mr. CAO?
Mr. Mayor, the downtown, detailed downtown master plan work is now been commissioned. There was a misunderstanding, I guess, on behalf of the consultant with regards to the timing. That has been straightened out. We have a kickoff meeting scheduled for this week to determine the work. There's been a great deal of background work done already, so it's not anticipated this is going to take a long time, and we should have that master plan to us. I believe it's scheduled to be at council in 2 months' time.
Okay.
And that does contemplate truck traffic and roads and all the other things for downtown that the councilors mentioned.
So to that, and I think this is a question for Mr. Mantle or the CAO, but I think what the councilor's asking is what's required to change those things? Is a study required, and should we put some money in the budget, essentially, if a study's required? So, Mr. Mantle, can you comment on that?
You can simply do a bylaw to restrict truck traffic of a certain size to the area, or you could expand upon it and do a traffic study, analyze, like we do safety studies from time to time, deal with intersection problems and kind of bundle them together, deal with them all at once, and what is the impact if you do one thing, what happens, does it move traffic to Hay Street, if you shut down truck traffic on Pelham? So those kind of issues have to be looked at as part of the process. resolving one issue creates another problem elsewhere in town.
Okay, thank you. Does that help, Counselor?
Well, the follow-up to that question then is, would that necessitate engaging a consultant, and would it have a budgetary implication?
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
So should we then seek a report to give us some idea of the costs that might be incurred if we were to undertake that sort of thing? I would like to see that.
Okay, so you make that amendment. I just wanted to kind of tease out exactly
Yeah,
what
that's- I would like to
what
see
we were looking for. So your amendment to the report is that staff will report back as part of the budget process in terms of,
Basically a
What would be-
direction, yeah,
what
that
would
they
be
would
the
provide
requirement?
us. Yeah, they could provide us a report in advance of the budget process or as part of the budget process.
okay, thank you. Should we take that as an amendment, I guess? We'll take that as an amendment. To that amendment, going to call the question on the amendment. All those in favor? Any opposed? That amendment is carried. Thank you, Councillor. We look forward to that. Is there anything further on the report? Councillor Ribbiak?
Thank you. I wonder, Mr. Mayor, if I could have some greater understanding with regard to the Swayze drain cleaning operation that is slated for, I guess, later this year, 2013. Not much of the year left. Very detailed description, and I guess one can get lost in the details, so I just wonder whether generally are we talking about a cleaning that's starting from the south and going north, or from the north going south? Obviously, it would be better if the drain was cleaned in such a way that water would flow to its destination. Can I
Mr.
have
Mano,
some-
can you assist the councillor?
The drain will be cleaned from its outlet, I think it outlets to the Big Creek drain, so it'll be cleaned from the Big Creek drain north to its limits.
A supplementary, and then the Big Creek drain. Has that been cleaned recently? Is water going to have reasonably good access to drain away?
Mr. Mano?
I believe so. I'd have to take a look at the records. The drainage superintendent's no longer with us, so I'd have to look back to see what the last maintenance efforts were on the Big Creek.
Right.
Thank you. I wonder also if we can circulate, there was a report last spring, I believe, about drains in the town, and there was a schedule of
There was.
particular drains, including a map. And this is meeting the schedule, Mr. Mano?
It is, yes.
Okay, so maybe that report can be shared. We have that direction, maybe, I don't know, the clerk's office can share that report to all of council, just so that they know about that. Council?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And yes, that would be useful to be as a reminder. There is a great deal of concern, of course, in Pelham with regard to water flowing, particularly in the south of Pelham, where it's very flat, and a considerable amount of concern that the water is not flowing as it ought, and perhaps that's because not necessarily true, but a concern that it might be because the schedule of cleaning is such that the result of the cleaning is not done. Is not that the water can flow without barrier to the south toward the river, and I think the greater clarity that there can be that in fact we do proceed logically and rationally from the outlet through to its tributaries and to the terminus. It's just useful for people to know. So this is excellent information, and I'm glad that it's happening. One other question, if I may.
Okay, anything else on that, on drains? Okay, go ahead, councillor.
The East Branch is clean to Foss Road, not to its end.
I'd have to take a look and see what the limits were. I can't recall exactly.
Okay.
I think the terminus is up into Fenwick.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
I believe we're cleaning the whole thing.
Not according to this description.
Okay.
To Foss Road,
Absolutely.
approximately 200 meters west of Church Street.
And unfortunately, my experience is that I look at the Swayze drain virtually every day simply because of where I live, and I know it is more choked north of Foss Road than it is south of Foss Road. So I just ask you to take a look at that.
Okay, thank you. Anything further? Mr. Mantle, you have some items here about neighborhood traffic management program. So it looks like one is proceeding, the one on Haste Street north of 20. And there's going to be a committee that's formed what's the process or progress on the second one, Pancake Lane?
The second one, the Pancake Lane one, I've been in discussions with one of the proponents there. We'll be meeting this week to formulate the committee and move on to the next steps.
Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Anything further? There being none, I call the question on the report with that amendment. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried as amended. Next, we move to Community Planning and Development. It's been moved by Councillor Kersey, seconded by Councillor Papp. The Committee of the Whole received the September 2013 Planning and Development Services Report for information. I note that on our desks was that chart that the Director had promised. Any questions, comments on the Director's report? Councillor Papp.
Quick question through you, Mr. Mayor, to the Director. On your building permits and that, I see there's a reference to a commercial building, the LCBO on Highway 20. Have they applied? Have they, is that, help me, I must have missed something here. Have they bought the land, or?
Oh, we issued the site plan control agreement is in place, and we issued the permit. That's why it's here.
So LCBO has entered into a site plan control
Yes.
arrangement with us. All right. Interesting. That's, when did that happen?
Development.
Can you tell me? When did that?
Council approved the site plan the
Months ago.
a few months ago, yeah.
All right, I
Nice to
must have
see
missed
some
it.
action
Sorry,
on
it's
it.
my fault. Just, I'd like to know,
It
especially
was
an
a
important
two- it was
building
a-
like that going up.
Who wants to keep track of the liquor store?
Thank you. Any others? You mentioned LCBO and we all go crazy. Councillor Kersey.
Caught my attention.
Mr. Mayor, my questions are pertaining to budgetary planning items. When I attended the Heritage meeting that was held a week or 10 days ago, one of the things that sort of was discussed, and actually it's referred to in the Heritage report, is to consider having both a stick and a carrot. So you have an element of people feeling some restriction on their property, but on the other hand, if you provide a carrot to encourage them to protect their properties by perhaps forming a CIP that would assist individual homeowners who have their property designated as a heritage building, or even placed on the list as acknowledged heritage property. And so what I'm putting forth, Mr. Mayor, is that perhaps staff could bring forward a report pre-budget to advise us along these lines of the type of costs that we might be incurring, and if they feel that it is in fact a good and supportable thing that we should be taking a serious look at. Much to the same idea as we did with the downtown cores, where we begin slowly and add a few dollars in, and as the program builds up steam, that we provide for that going forward. So I would like to see a report somewhere around there. I mean, it's extracting information out of the Heritage report and trying to put some teeth or legs to it.
Okay, thank you. So your motion is to look for a report with the idea of a community improvement plan for heritage buildings.
Motion or direction, Mr. Mayor, whatever you want for the call is fine.
Well, we'll take it as a motion. To that motion, Councillor Durley, any comments? You sit on that committee and serve there.
As well, yes, Mr. Mayor, as well as providing a cash initiative, perhaps we could, is there a possibility to look at some tax break phasing in of any supplementary assessment or something like that if it does go through? So this would all be part and parcel, but certainly if there is the incentive, the cost to maintain a property in its heritage state as opposed to buying it at the box store is different. So the difference between the two is something we should be looking at, assisting the homeowner if in fact designation does come. However, we're we're quite a ways away from any designations as yet for any private property. So, it's not something immediate, but definitely down the road, if we can be prepared for that, it certainly would be a great idea, in my opinion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Others? So you're looking for a report on that as part of the budget process, so I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion's carried. Counselor, you asked earlier about the timing of these sort of things. So I want to let you know that some of them, especially if they're a bit more meaty, the appropriate thing to do would be to add it to the agenda, maybe under new business. Alert colleagues that there's something that you want to discuss on the matter. Give us a little bit more time to discuss it. The other is that we do have that budget meeting coming up on the 15th, so that's another opportunity to kind of talk about it and brainstorm on these ideas. So I don't know if you have one for every section. You might.
I have a few.
And we look forward to that. But I think it's important sometimes for colleagues, especially if you're asking for a report, that's one thing, but if there's something substantive.
I'm basically asking for reports, Mr. Mayor. I haven't asked for any firm commitment. I'm trying to provide both myself and the rest of council with information so that we can make informed decisions.
Okay, excellent. So anything further to the Director of Planning and Development Services report?
I had another one.
You have another one? Go ahead, Councillor.
And it centers, Mr. Mayor, around this whole idea of economic development that we've undertaken and are beginning the processes for. And it may be premature, but again, even if it impacts 2015, it would be helpful to have that information. So when I look at different communities, there's a variety of techniques that various communities undertake to support financially economic development. And one of them is to form, for example, an economic development investment fund, where on the levy, so much per household is added to the levy, and that goes directly into an economic development investment fund. There's all sorts of different formulas and different methodologies to do that. And so I guess I just wanted to bring this up at this point and perhaps ask for a report from planning and commentary on the various types of economic development investment funds that are out there and how various communities do it and the types of budgetary implications it might have going forward.
Okay, thank you. Mr. CEO?
Mr. Mayor, I don't believe that would be an assignment of planning, more than likely an assignment for my office to undertake.
Okay. Do you want to hold that till the CEO's report?
I'll hold that till the CAO's report.
I did note that there was a recent article in Municipal World about economic development investment fund in Kitchener and how effective it was. Okay, so we'll hold off on that. Others to the planning report itself? There being none, I'm going to call the question as amended. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion's carried. Thank you. The next item is fire services. It's been moved by Councillor Clark, seconded by Councillor Kersey, that the Committee of the Whole receive the September 2013 Fire Services Report for information. Should be Fire and Bylaw Services, I guess. Councillor Kersey, got another one?
Nothing, nothing.
Okay. Anything? There being none, I call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion's carried. Can you make that change? That's bylaw services. Thank you. Going forward, doesn't it? The next item has been moved by Councillor Clark, seconded by Councillor Kersey. The Committee of the Whole received the September 2013 Recreation, Culture, and Wellness Report for information. Any items here? Councillor Kersey.
Continuing with my same vein of thought, Mr. Mayor, and in preparation for budget speaks, I was again thinking that we need to put some legs to the cultural master plan. And within the cultural master plan, it speaks of perhaps hiring an individual to oversee culture and to sort of work with the cultural committee that is destined to be established in the committee to direct culture in our community and to look at ways that culture and recreation can be leveraged from an economic development standpoint. So I was requesting, or would like to request, a report from staff as to the cost of hiring an individual to work in this capacity. And my thought was that perhaps in that report they could incorporate the idea of, if we can't swing it as or there's not enough work for a person to just look after culture, that perhaps they could be used to look after heritage and economic development, at least in the incipient stages, until each of those areas grows to where they might need more oversight by a specific individual. So I was hoping that we could get a report pre-budget to look at what the cost implications would be with respect to giving legs to those recommendations that were contained within the cultural master plan.
Okay, thank you. Others to the motion put forward by the councillor? There being none, I call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried.
A lot of tons of money on it.
50 grand.
Other discussion with the Recreation, Culture, and Wellness report?
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead, councillor.
quickly through you to the director, skate park, anticipated completion date, rough guess?
Mayor, actually, we have a progress meeting tomorrow.
Okay,
If you're there about halfway, so.
Okay. that's fine.
Okay, you'll update us?
We'll have an opening mid-November, if not before that.
Okay.
That's good. Oh, good.
And when I was at Aviva, they were quite interested and want to be part of it, so we make sure that we give people lots of notice.
We sure will.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you. Anything else? Councillor King?
Mr. Mayor, to the director, I just have a question with regards to the favorite crossing guard contest and whether there is any way that we as council can support this initiative. Because in your report, you refer to encouraging students, teachers, and parents to support favorite crossing guards.
We could have the applications online and circulate them to council as well. Basically, what we're trying to do is highlight our crossing guards, bring them up a level, and show our appreciation to them. When we met with the crossing guards prior to the season beginning, they were thrilled that there was actually a contest. So, yeah, if the thing is, you would need to know your crossing guard, or maybe you do in your area. We'd appreciate it.
So,
And I'm sure they would too.
so we're going to get the word out. How do we get the
Yeah.
word out, I think is what
Yeah.
the councillor's asking.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I know that the word's been out in the newspapers, there are stories as well. It's going to go through the schools, the Parent-Teacher Association as well. Each. Okay, thank you.
Good, look forward to that. Anything further?
Okay, I'll take the 3 pages and put them in.
I'm going to call the question on the motion to receive as amended with that information regarding the cultural master plan funding kind of implications going forward. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. It's been moved by Councillor Kersey, seconded by Councillor Papp, that the agenda and meeting management report of October 7th, 2013 be received, and the recommendations approved as follows. That the clerk be directed to post the proposed amendments to the procedure bylaw to the municipal website in accordance with the town notice policy, and that the amended procedure bylaw be presented for council's consideration on October 21st, 2013. So there have been a number of changes, some things that councillors individually and as a whole have been asking of the clerk, so kudos for you for putting this together. Council colleagues, Councillor Kersey, did I see your hand going up? You want to comment on this section? I thought I saw your hand.
hold back for a few
You're
minutes.
gonna, okay? Counselor Durling.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I look at this, and I really like what's here. Congratulations to clerical staff for putting this all together and everybody who contributed. One concern I do have, and it stems around how busy this summer has been. We cut out 2 meetings and we had 5 special meetings or more. So I'm just wondering if it's a wise idea to cut out the 2 meetings. If we should keep going on the 1st and 3rd for July and August, because summer is certainly not a slow time. It's a very, very busy time, and I would think it would be more fair to staff to divide the work into 2 meetings rather than the 1 meeting, and we would not have an agenda that's 600 pages long either. So, I think it would be a good idea that we keep that schedule. People will be going on vacation, and that's probably the whole idea behind taking a meeting out. But, if one council member is away on vacation, then certainly we can still transact business anyway. But I wonder, I would like to amend that to say that the meeting schedule be continuous throughout the 1st and 3rd of every month rather than to cut out the 2 meetings in September.
Okay, thank you. To that amendment, anyone? Counselor Pat?
Concur. I mean, I don't think work's gonna slow down over the next few months, and depending, no matter what, whoever takes over a year from now, it doesn't seem to be working, and we've both, Councilor Durley and I, have been here long enough to know, and this year, it's not an oddity, it seems to be becoming a normality, so we might as well stick to it, especially if we got, so I support it.
Okay, thank you. Others? Okay, you ready for calling the question on the amendment? All those in favor? Any opposed? That amendment's carried. Other discussion to the changes? Councillor Kersey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had 2 items that I would like to suggest. One would be that we include, and it may be there in some of the verbiage that I don't quite understand, but we often get items that are in our packages or even delegations that present to us that are in areas that are ultra-virus, that are outside of our control. We have nothing to say about them. We really have no control or authority there. We could reduce our packages by having the clerk screen matters that are coming before us to ensure that what comes before us is within our jurisdiction and not ultra-virus. So that would one of the things that I was thinking.
All right, Madam Clerk, you're, I don't know that amendment's required.
Well, that's what I'm asking.
Yeah. Madam Clerk, can you comment on that, please?
Certainly, it is included in the delegation protocol and in the procedural bylaw that we only have delegations that are within our jurisdiction. It's in the delegation protocol. We do recognize that there are occasions when people make an application to present to council. That becomes then a decision between the CAO, the mayor, and the clerk as to whether or not to allow them to have their 10 minutes to make their presentation. And they are always cautioned that it is outside the scope of this council's jurisdiction to make a decision, but it is something that's reviewed by the 3 of us. So I don't know if the CAO has anything further to add.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor?
That's fine, thank you.
The protocols are there in place.
Great, okay. The other issue that I wanted to bring up was within the procedural bylaw, there's an amendment that our curfew is at 10 o'clock, and it is to go beyond that or to dispense with that curfew requires unanimous vote as opposed to the 2/3 vote. And when I look at the number of meetings that we've met, have had to go beyond 10 o'clock, they're few and far, or they're multiple. So I would feel more comfortable if we had a 10:30 curfew, if we're invoking a unanimous vote. The 2/3 is a little more comforting at the 10 o'clock level because it allows for the fact that you could have one disgruntled councillor who doesn't want to go beyond that, where the majority wants to, but under the current amendment, the business of the town could be put on hold until another meeting, just because we don't achieve that unanimous vote.
Okay, so you're not wanting to change that? Is that what you're recommending, or are you
Either-
recommending?
Either not change that from the 2/3, or put it to 10:30 with a unanimous vote to go beyond 10:30.
Okay, so you want to hear from your colleagues?
Yes.
Council colleagues, thoughts? Councillor Pat?
Sure, I'll wade in. To my good friend, no, I'm disagree. 10 o'clock, unanimous vote. If you can't get through the business, then most of the work that we've done after has been in camera. I think some of the stuff, I think you'll probably find as we get more, I'm thinking we're getting more, better at doing the work. Hopefully, we don't have to go beyond 10 o'clock. In fact, I'd like to put it to 9 o'clock and 9:30. There's no reason why. I mean, I'm not being facetious. We gotta move through this stuff, and sometimes we get caught up, but that's where I sit.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Clark?
I like the way it is, has been rewritten, with a 10 o'clock unanimous decision. The reason being is, that puts pressure on agenda planning.
Get it done.
You know when you're laying that agenda out, it's gotta be done by 10 o'clock, because if one person doesn't like it, it's over.
Okay, thank you. Others?
I would agree with leaving curfew at 10 o'clock, and I'm in agreement with what Councillor Clark is saying. I believe that there are times that we go on and on and on unnecessarily, and if we extend the curfew to 10:30, that will just allow us to go on even longer. And anyway, enough said.
Thank you.
I think the CAO agrees with that, too. Get my next page out there.
I'm gonna comment on this because there were comments about some of the summer meetings, and I think some of those meetings occurred because we couldn't get to some of the important items that we had to deal with. Some of them were in-camera meetings, etc. I am concerned, quite frankly, about the change from a 2/3 to unanimous. I know that some councils do it. They do it at 11 o'clock, and they start at 7, I think. So I guess I'm worried about that, again, because of as someone said, a disgruntled councillor. That might go on and on and on and on, and then all of a sudden invoke the unanimity clause here to, and all of a sudden the meeting drags kind of to a halt. So I would, I don't know, maybe we'll hear from the clerk if other councils have this, that it's unanimous consent. I know the region, I know some do, but do all. The region is a 2/3 vote. It used to be simple majority at the region, then it moved to a 2/3. Can we hear from the clerk as to other councils that you've surveyed that have the unanimous vote on extension of curfew?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, it was varied. Yeah, there were a lot that were 2/3, some were unanimous, but I was asked to bring that forward by one of the members of council, so I brought it forward as it says in the report for discussion.
Okay.
Of course, it's council's decision.
All right, thank you. So I would suggest the councillors think about this with caution. And that's the possibility, so that's all I'll say.
I'm not cautious, get it done.
Okay, well, it is 9:44 right now.
And here's a prime example.
Okay, others? Any other changes?
No.
So this would mean that,
Meeting should be held at your house.
well, there's a number of changes here. Anything further? So we're ready for calling the question?
Yep.
Councillor Kersey did
Oh.
make an amendment
Right.
for the curfew, and I don't think we voted on that yet, so.
Did he make an amendment? That'd be, right.
He
No, he
suggested
wanted to
an
hear
amendment.
from his colleagues. Councillor Kersey, that's great. Thank you, Madam Clerk.
So-
You said before you made an amendment, you wanted to hear from your council colleagues in terms of whether it should be 10 o'clock and unanimous, 10:30.
Apart from
2:30.
yourself and myself, Mr. Mayor, the sense I'm getting around the table is that they're happy with 10 o'clock, and if we have to have special call meetings in between, then so be it, I guess.
Okay.
I
So we'll
guess
leave
the-
it at that.
Yeah, I guess the question is which is more inconvenient and productive?
Thank you. Others? Councillor Ribbiak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just thinking about the times that we did have, I guess, the marathon sessions that we remember well. Most of those were in camera. Most of those dealt with very serious issues. I'm not sure that, aside from the discomfort that a late sitting obviously provides, that it was felt that it was an unnecessary or somehow inefficient discussions, specific discussions. Yes, they were late, they went on, but I'm not sure that the discussions that we stayed late for were the reason that it was late. It was probably the more normal business of council. So I'm a little worried too that we may not get to the important stuff that we need to get to if we can't figure out a way of efficiently managing all the minutiae that we deal with and the processes that we have. Yes, they're necessary. Obviously, we need to pass all of that stuff, but I think we may want to think about what the real problem is before determining what the solution might be. I'm not sure that the discussions were the wrong thing to do, regardless of the time that they occurred, or whether it was a special meeting that was required to have them, or that they stayed late. But rather that the time that we spend in these meetings is not as efficiently or spent or as well organized as it could be. And I certainly appreciate our clerk's attempt at streamlining this a little. I think it probably requires a lot more streamlining before I'd feel entirely comfortable that 10 o'clock, do or die, we're out of here. Those are my comments.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Papp?
I can't help but respond. It's not a matter of do and die. It's a matter if we properly manage the agenda, and I could go on for hours with this. We could be done and we can deal. And truthfully, with all due respect to all of you, we have always agreed, all of us. I don't remember anyone saying no when we want to go into all those issues. I agree with Councilor Rubio for very important issues, whether it was 1 o'clock, 12:30. I'm just trying to keep us focused on what is the gist and the higher levels so we get it done. And it's not a criticism. It's just I've been here long enough to see where things can be done. And you're right, the minutia, you got to get rid of it. You got to get rid of it because we're getting bogged down and get to the front. And the truth is, if it comes past 10 o'clock and all of us know we got an important thing to do, we'll be here. We'll stay. I don't know anybody said they wouldn't stay. Unless I'm mistaken, I haven't seen it in 10 years. So I'm comfortable, but I'm also, wary of the fact that if others have other ways of doing it. But these are best practices, and I support the clerk checked with others. And you know what? The truth is, we moved our meetings back from 7 o'clock to 6:30. If you recall,
Curfew used to be 11. Right?
Yeah, we used to, right, Mr. Mayor? We actually did that because we were trying to manage this. So let's keep going and let's see how it works.
Okay. Anything further from council? Councillor Clark?
Just exactly the same as what Councillor Papp just said, that the idea behind this 10 o'clock curfew is to plan the agenda and move it along. And the second thing is that a unanimous decision will continue the meeting. There you go.
Simple.
That's it.
Okay. Thank you. Going to call anything further on this? I'm going to call the question as amended, which is the July and August meetings. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. The next item is the clerk's report. It's been moved by Councillor King, seconded by Councillor Ribbiak. The Committee of the Whole received the September 2013 Clerk's Department report for information. Any discussion? I do have a question. It's regarding the schedule for next year. Are we approving that? Is that just for draft form? I guess there's some changes that'll be required. I guess I was thinking, there's also information here about the election, and I was thinking last term, during that period that's between nomination day and election day, some of the meetings were sort of curtailed, and there was a article in the Municipal World about a lame duck council, etc. So maybe that's something that we'll want to consider, the timing in that election period. Okay. Anything further on the clerk's report? There being none, I call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion's carried. Next is CO's report. It's been moved by Councillor Durley, second by Councillor Ribbiak. Committee of the whole receive the 2013 September Chief Administrative Officer's report for information. I had some questions about Peace Park. Mr. CO, your report makes reference to it.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, the Peace Park Master Plan is basically complete. I've been in discussions with the consultant. The plan is to have them come out the afternoon of October 21st and do a presentation to the committee, and then they would appear as a delegation to council and make a presentation on the Peace Park Master Plan. There's also going to be a supplementary part of that, which that report, which would be an arborist recommendation, and there is, from what I understand, some work that can be done in Peace Park with relation to tree removal this fall, and start to gear up for work to commence late winter, early spring for next year. And this has also been and will continue to be coordinated with the Bandshell Committee as not to interrupt the summer Bandshell's concert series.
Thank you. So I'd heard from the Bandshell Committee they were interested in that and looking if some movement had to occur this year as opposed to next year. Okay, thank you. And the business plan study, one earlier report said November. Your report doesn't say a date. When can we expect that? It says in coming weeks.
I don't have the exact timeline nailed down, but as far as the update on the business planning, all the telephone survey calls are done. The data is being coded and being prepared for analysis. The other area that we're looking just to tie up is the arena group surveys. Almost all of those have been returned. We need to get them all back in so that we can complete the data set. And that I know Vicky's been working with Leisure Plan to provide information with regards to the overall plan. So do I have a specific time? No, but we're anticipating in the next several weeks we'll have that plan at least in draft form to council.
So it'll be either October 21st or the first meeting in November?
That's my expectation, yes, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, because some folks in the community have been asking, after receiving a call, they're wondering when are the results coming forward. All right, thank you. Do you have something else?
Yes,
Mr. CO?
Mr. Mayor, just council can forgive me, I forgot to put one small item in my report, and that is that through the communications officer, we are working on a speed awareness campaign for the community. We've had a number of complaints from across the community. So Anna McKnight is putting together a PSA type campaign to encourage members of the community to slow down. She was out doing a photo shoot in her front yard. I understand staging some pictures for the posters and whatnot, but that'll be something that we're rolling out fairly shortly as well.
Okay, thank you. The region has a campaign called Think and Drive, and I know that they were using Niagara-on-the-Lake as a pilot. Perhaps they can use Pelham as well as a pilot project on that, and we can get some resources from the region's Think and Drive campaign. So look forward to that. Thank you. Anything further for the CAO? Councilor Kersey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't think I have to go through my logic again with respect to the Economic Development Investment Fund. I trust the CAO heard my request, and I'd look forward to that report. Thank you.
Do you want an amendment or do you want a direction?
Direction's good.
Okay, so direction for an Economic Development Investment Fund. Councilor Clark?
No, just about the speeding, that's great news. And any of that comes out that can be rained down on the residents of Pelham to know that we are aware of the speeding problems and trying to do something about it would be good news.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? There being none, I call the question, including that direction. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion's carried. There is one item of new business here, and it's speed humps. I know I've talked a little bit. Councillor Papp received some calls. I received a couple of calls and an email regarding the speed humps on Haste Street. Some residents from the community that are saying they're difficult to see, especially at night, and especially as the strips were being painted recently in the town, all the traffic lines, etc. Could we paint on the speed humps? So I know that maybe this is like Councillor Kersey, let's get a report on this and see what it would cost to do that, to delineate it better. I understand from talking to staff that the humps are signed appropriately and that the Highway Traffic Act manual or traffic manual doesn't have any actual markings, but when one drives in other communities, one sees that there are markings. So I would ask that we come back, ask staff to come back with information on how much it would cost to paint those speed humps to further delineate them for folks. So you want that as a a direction, or are you okay with, or a motion or direction, you okay with that? Okay. So we look forward to that at a future meeting. And that's it. Moved by Councillor Ribbiak, second by Councillor Durley. This regular meeting of Committee of the Whole be adjourned until the next regular committee meeting scheduled for Monday, October 21st, 2015, unless there are called by the mayor. All those in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.